Hi, I'm Melissa. Welcome to Wed and Worth It. We're going to have transparent conversations around budgets and walk through the emotional journey that is wedding planning. We're going to discuss the value of investing in meaningful moments and the joy that comes from creating an experience for yourselves and your loved ones. We talk to newly married couples to find out, was it worth it?
Hello, I'm so excited. We have Seets in the house today. She's going to be sharing about her wedding that took place in Philly last November, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, just last November.
It just happened. Did you just get back from your honeymoon yesterday? Probably.
No. We actually postponed it until the end of February. So we just kind of held off. Yeah. So our big celebration in November, so we eloped, which is kind of crazy. We're a multicultural couple, so it was a big deal to elope almost
Yeah.
a year, almost 2 years ago, actually. So
Okay, wait.
November was a larger celebration.
Okay, back up really quick. How did you meet your husband?
We're a pandemic couple. So we met in August of 2020 online on a dating app as people do nowadays.
Yeah, all good love stories start.
Started online. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And then when did y'all get engaged?
So I guess it's a little bit tricky because of the elopement in there. So what happened is around February of 2023, we kind of had this discussion of progressing our relationship forward. So it's not a classic proposal, I think, in the way that people will think about it, but we made a conscious decision together to spend the rest of our lives together and want to progress the relationship to the next step. And so then we actually had our elopement in May. So we planned, it was a very small event that we had in our house, actually.
Oh, okay.
So
how many people were there?
There was including us, it was 8 people. So it was 3 other of our friend couples. So
that's so sweet. I love that. And did you guys know at that time that you were still going to do the larger big party wedding as well?
I guess just to preface, we were chatting a little bit before the recording, and I was saying, this 1.5 years of planning was a very interesting, a little bit of an interesting time, because I didn't realize necessarily, and I think that that's my own fault, that my parents were not there for the elopement, and neither was Henry's family. I think his family was okay with it, but my parents were much more bothered by it. So I think having this larger celebration, and again, as a multicultural couple and coming from a culture that really celebrates very large weddings, this was something that they really wanted and had been planning for since I was born, basically. So that was a nice thing to do as well, so that they could participate. All the important people in our lives and in their lives could participate as well.
Yeah, I think that is one big difference between people will be like, it's just a party. It's not just a party. It's a really big event for not just you, but families and friends. And so to be able to celebrate that once in a lifetime moment it is a big deal. Were you on board with having that celebration too, or did you feel like it was mostly for families?
No. So amongst my friends, I'm the party planner. I plan my birthday 6 months in advance. They're really big dues, and they already came into this heightened expectation. And I think that that's something that maybe we can touch on later, is there are these other people's expectations of your celebration.
It's so shocking to hear. I've never heard that before.
I was very on board because I just like planning, and I went into planning mode quite quickly. But Henry, on the other hand, he's on the shyer side and likes to keep things private. And so that tended to get really overwhelming for him. And so I did majority of it myself. I mean, I had a planner and I had a wonderful vendor team and everything, but a lot of it was just me. And then even my parents weren't necessarily involved in the planning. The main thing that they wanted to be involved in is catering food. So I think that was also sort of this quote unquote interesting portion of it, is that I was a lot of times just I didn't really have a lot of people to talk about it with. So
can we circle back really quick? I'm gonna need some tips for planning your own birthday party.
I'm a theme queen. I love a good theme, and so every birthday, every single year, I would have a specific theme. 25 was the quarter, so my invites had my face on the quarter. 28 was technically 28 years later, so it was a horror themed birthday party.
My gosh, I love this too much.
Yeah.
I'm over here, probably more similar to your husband. I'm like, does somebody maybe want to go out to dinner? It's okay. You don't have to go out to dinner. It's a fine. You're probably busy. It's fine. I'm just actually going to stay home. So I just admire anybody who like throws parties like that. And I like, way to go. So you were like primed and ready to start planning.
Yeah, I had a very clear vision of what aesthetically and like kind of the influences were and things like that. So that I came in like very well prepared in that aspect. So it actually made things much easier, I think. I think again, if you're not very clear, it's like, I don't know, maybe this, maybe that, but I was very like, no, this is what I want. I don't like this.
I have a vision. So what was your original budget?
So my parents covered the majority of the cost. There are a couple of elements to the weekend that I personally covered, such as a pre-wedding event / like small get-together with friends, as well as the after party. So I covered those two by myself.
Okay.
But the original budget with my parents alone, they gave a range basically. So the range was $200,000 to $250,000.
Okay. And so that was like the groundwork that was set. And then did you go straight to finding a venue? Did you know what venue because you had this vision, or did you go to a planner first?
I've been in Philadelphia for over 15 years. So I really knew which venue I had been wanting to go to. And I had told a bunch of my friends that one day I'm going to have my wedding at this venue. And so the venue...
So you knew.
Yeah, so I knew. But you never know if they're available or if there's like behind the scenes drama at the venue. Like you just sort of imagine things. And so we definitely didn't want like a traditional ballroom scene, and we didn't necessarily want something that was just like 4 walls. We wanted something a little bit different.
Okay. You said it was a multicultural wedding. So did that play a factor into the venue as well, or not really?
We definitely needed to make sure that there were cultural elements that were allowed and like fulfilled like the fire code. Because I'm Indian, and so that there's a fire that's traditionally with a Hindu ceremony.
Okay. What was the guest list?
Like
size?
Number, you mean?
Yes, sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
If you could start just naming people.
Yeah, so originally we had thought it was going to be 250, but then when we actually wrote every name down, it ended up becoming 200.
Okay.
And then at the very end, like the amount of guests that actually did end up attending was 140.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I didn't mean to interject. I was just curious because you're talking about like fire code and all that, and
yeah. No, it's mostly just because like in Hindu ceremony, there's like actually like a fire that's like that bears witness like part of the ceremony, and so that's like where the fire code fits in. So I think that that's fair that certain venues won't have open flames.
Sure.
So that played a part into it, and then the other thing about the venue, which I think is again like this is more maybe tied closer to like a multicultural event and maybe specifically like an Indian event, although I think they're leaning more Western, is that ours was in the morning. So like the ceremony was actually in the morning. And so my parents preferably wanted a venue that could just be the whole day, basically.
Okay.
We may not be there the whole day, and we did end up actually having a 4-hour gap in the middle of the day, but like we wanted ceremony and like a meal afterwards in the morning, and then like cocktail reception in the evening at one single place.
Okay. But yeah, there was a gap in between. Okay. So that venue that you chose, it met all of those requirements and also the grander vision stylistically that you had envisioned.
Yeah, it was actually the venue that I wanted. So it worked out. I was actually surprised. But again, like Philadelphia is a very cultural city, and so it has so many different options available for non-traditional venues. And so it was nice to like be able to use the venue that I had originally envisioned when I was first moved here.
Yeah, that is so sweet. Like what a sweet little gift that all like it came full circle and you got to do that. So when did your wedding planner come into play?
Very early. So the wedding planner, we booked them first. And honestly, we chose the wedding planner based off of where they had planned previous weddings. So one of the most important things was that they were local. So they knew all the requirements, like any of the noise ordinances, and they knew like local vendors, and they knew sort of the logistics. And then had they done weddings at similar non-traditional venue types. So they
Sure.
would be more easily able to navigate any issues that arose. So that was actually the first piece of it. And then after getting the planner, I talked to them and said, these are the places that we're kind of interested in. Let's see which places are available. Let's set up tours to go see them and things like that.
Okay. So she guided you along that piece as well with the venue, and it all just kind of came together.
Yes.
So I kind of want to go back to what you said. You said it was
Yeah.
an interesting year.
Yeah.
A year and a half. I'm like, who cares about my questions? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I think it was an interesting year for many different reasons. The planning process really, I didn't necessarily want to burden other people with talking about like the stress of it, because I already could tell that my parents were getting stressed, and like my now husband is like getting stressed. And then I was also like, you don't want to like just spill your guts out to the planner. I mean, they're good at helping you kind of like calm down, but that's not their job. They're not your therapist. Like that's not really what they're like hired to do.
I mean, it would not be their first time, I am sure of it.
Yeah. I'm sure it's not their first time and wouldn't be their last, but for me personally, I didn't necessarily want to burden other people with that stress. And then on top of it, I had another friend who was planning a wedding simultaneously with a much smaller budget, and so then it felt very odd for me to like have these conversations with her because of the budget difference. So,
Interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic.
Yes, but thankfully I did have one really good friend, Kelly, who was like
Shout
super
out to
helpful.
Kelly.
Shout out to Kelly. And then, so she was wonderful, and she really like pulled through being a sounding board and everything, and I really appreciate her. But basically that was sort of the beginning portion. The other portion is like navigating vendor fall through. So our venue had a caterer you had to use. Or if you didn't use them, you would have to do a full buyout and then get a new caterer. So you were basically paying double for catering.
Okay.
So we were fine with using the in-house caterer because they already were comfortable with like
they're familiar
food, like with the cuisine.
Okay.
They're pretty well established in the Philadelphia scene and things like that. But then what ended up happening was that halfway through the process, we had already paid the first deposit, and we were about to pay the second deposit and about to do menu development. And then the venue called us and told us that their contract ended. And so they were in the process of hiring a new caterer. So then that took a whole bunch of months before that finally got settled. So that would have been like February or March of 2024. And then we found out who was hired June of 2024, and then didn't actually do menu development until September.
So did the venue know that contract was ending?
It sounded sudden is what my understanding is, but like I don't think you'll ever know.
You were privy to that information. Okay, yeah, I'm like, oh, that's interesting that they would take that deposit knowing that that contract was going to be ending. Okay.
Yeah, and they returned the deposit. So the catering company did return it.
That was my next question.
Yeah. So the catering company who originally was there, they did return it. And we missed giving the second deposit anyway. So it was just the first deposit that they returned. So there really wasn't any loss in that. Or I guess there was a loss in time, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, financially, there wasn't a big loss. And then it was a lot of like nervous energy then from like May through September of not knowing what was going on. Because again, like we also realized that the new company had to catch up to all the other weddings that were before us.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Like, that's like a very understandable situation, but it definitely built a lot of like tension.
Was this new catering company, were they familiar with Indian cuisine and all that? Like, did they have that background knowledge as well?
Eventually, thankfully, the food came out fantastic and everyone really loved it. And so, but it was definitely like once September came, we really hit the ground running like very quickly. And thankfully, because I'm a crazy planner, everything else was done. So it was literally just focusing on catering towards the end.
Okay.
So all of the big like decisions and all of the big planning and everything had already been settled. So then we could just focus on them.
Focus on the catering. What were your big priorities like going into planning? Like what were the things that you were like, I have this vision and this is where we would like to allocate money towards?
Priorities, photography was definitely the top. like one of the top. Yes.
Oh.
But yeah, photography was absolutely like number one, because I think that's just memories. I think they last forever. And I think good photography can capture emotions, and like you relive those emotions every time you see them, right? And we didn't have a videographer, we just only had photography. And I think that like from a videography standpoint, sometimes like you lose a little bit of the nostalgia edge, because then you don't remember it quite as well. And sometimes that fuzzy memory like makes
romanticizes
it
it.
romanticizes it a little bit more.
I've never thought of it that way, but I think you make a good point. Yeah. I love that. So, did you find your photographer shortly after your planner and venue then?
Yeah, so basically it went planner first, then venue. And then because the planner was already well established in the region, we just went through their recommendations. And so the photographer came from one of their recommendations.
Okay. Were you familiar? Had you done any previous stalking?
Yeah, so I guess this is an interesting point. So I had done research ahead of time and said, "Oh, I was interested in another photography group, like another team." And I talked to the planner, and they were like, "Sure, you can interview them, but we really think this would be a better fit for you. Like we think this group would be much better for you."
Why? Why did they say why?
I think they based off the vision, off the aesthetic, just based off of the way that I described it. I interviewed 3 of them, and one of them was the one that originally I had thought I would want, because I knew that they also had photographed at the venue. Like, again, it was very important for people to have, like, at least worked at the venue once, so they had some familiarity. And they ended up not being as interesting as I thought that they would be. Or, like, I don't know, there was something, like, I think seeing the photographs were really beautiful, but then in hindsight, I was like, oh, maybe not as great. I don't know.
The photos or like the people themselves?
I think so. Originally, it was the people themselves, and then after the interview, and I went back to look at the photos after having seen the planner's recommendations, I was like, now I can see there is a huge difference.
Interesting. Like stylistically and how they captured the day.
Exactly. Yeah.
What did she point out? Can I ask that?
Yeah, I think it was more so like a vibrancy of color, like color saturation, and more of a documentary style, and sort of a little bit of an editorial style, that like I thought that the original photographer, when I was just looking and researching, I thought they did that. But then when I like looked at the planner's recommendations, when I described it, I was like, oh no, the recommended vendors actually do it.
I love that. I love that she was able to see your vision and be like, okay, I love that this is what you think you want, but I think this may be a better option. And did you feel like when you met with them, like personality wise, did you feel like you got along better too with the ones that she had recommended?
Yeah, clicked so much better. Yeah, so much better. To be honest, like they were a godsend. The planners were a godsend. It really would not have turned out as fabulous of a weekend without them. Like I truly believe that.
I love that. I think that they put in so much work behind the scenes, and then on the day of, like they're there from like sun up to, I don't want to say till like the next morning sometimes. You know what I mean? Or in your case, maybe all weekend. Like they're in the trenches with you throughout this entire process, and the knowledge that they have is invaluable, I think.
And we did full service too. So I mean, like they did it. Like you cannot tell me a negative thing about them. I will refute it. I will keep refuting it. They were amazing, to the point where my parents were super impressed. Like husband is super impressed. Like everyone was like, they're amazing. So.
And you were talking about like some of that emotional stress and not wanting to put that on them, but do you feel like they were able to take some of that on and like quell your fears?
I do think like, so I was very open, at least I think, especially with regards to the catering situation. Like I was very open, like this is like very tense. I liked to have been involved, so I wasn't like removed from it. I was always like CC'd on email so I could follow up. But then I said, I'm getting really anxious about this. Can you just take this over? And they did a wonderful job just being the main communication point person. So, yeah.
I feel like it takes so much work to go back and forth between vendors, and like that in and of itself is, like the amount of emails. I'm like, I want the most efficient process to go back and forth emails over and over again, and like lengthy, like it's a lot to digest, and it becomes overwhelming really quick. So I love that they were able to step in and help you out in that regard.
The way I describe it is like an iceberg. You only see a part of what they do, and they do so much more is like hidden and behind the scenes. They really contribute to like making sure your day turns out beautifully, like than what you're actually able to see, kind of thing.
I love that analogy. I've never even thought about it that way, but that's 1,000% true. Like it's a huge undertaking, and the flow of the event. I love to tease too. I was just said this earlier. I'm like, I love to show up at the wedding, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just the most beautiful thing ever. I'm like so happy to be here and document this. Like it just poof, it appeared. It's like the planner's probably like, that's so, I love that you think, poof, I get to just photograph and document all of the beautiful decisions that you all made in your year and a half.
I mean, I guess you'll ask me at the end, but it was worth it, thankfully.
I love that. I will ask you that again at the very end. Okay, so what were some other notable events during the wedding planning process after you had your photographer in place?
Sure. So after photographer came floral and design. So I think like if we're going back to priorities, photography was very much up there. Catering was very much up there. So that also kind of added to the tension because that was a huge piece of like what was a priority for us. And then overall like design and aesthetic was really important. So floral design, originally I had interviewed someone who wasn't local, but again, we really wanted to stay with people who knew the Philadelphia region.
Was the person that you interviewed that wasn't local, like how did you find out about them? Did you have like an Instagram crush or something?
Yeah, my planner was like, hey, let me gently steer you in this direction. And of course, again, they were, they hit it out of the park and they knew. So.
Okay, so you ended up with a local florist. Had you heard of them before or?
No, I actually hadn't. I hadn't heard of them before. And I think that's what's really wonderful about being able to get recommendations is that you learn about, different businesses that you may not have been able to like pick up on. So.
Yeah, it's very, I think wedding planners play a very expansive role in educating just about the options that are out there and also playing a little bit like what you said, matchmaker. And like, listen, Linda, this isn't my first rodeo. Okay, so what was your kind of vision for floral and design?
Yeah, overall vision, color. Love color. Love lots of artistic influence as well. Like my husband and I, our second date was at an art museum, so we really love art. And so we really wanted to take a lot of artistic influence as well. And like we used a little bit of the like symbolist movement. So that's before surrealism. So it's like Gustav Klimt and things like that. So we used a lot of his artwork influence. So golds, metallics, things like that. So, and color, like rich color.
Rich color. I love it. I love it. I can't get enough of it. I think it's so easy to be like on Pinterest, pinning a board and being like, I want this. And I was talking with a wedding planner recently and she's like, I'm like, sure, send me a Pinterest board of like wedding inspo, but then also send me another board and no weddings are allowed on it. Like, where do you love to travel? Like, how can we pull that and maybe bring in some of that wedding inspo that you love, but we want it to be about you two and a reflection of your love story. So I love that you incorporated stuff like artists and pieces of art. How lovely.
Yeah, so the mood board was never wedding specific. It was always like this color, this art, this outfit because of the way it moves. So it's a lot of like texture, color, and things like that. Like those were the majority of the inspirations. So
I love that. I think we should scream that from the rooftops that that's what everybody needs to do. It's so easy to get caught up and see different trends within the industry and what wedding happened last month. So to really be able to put that aside and be like, no, I could care less about that. This is the outfit I love because the way it moves and the way that this artist inspires us, like slow clap for like real inspiration for the two of you. I love that.
It was hard though. I think it was hard for our parents to conceptualize it because it is a little bit more of an abstract like
Sure.
concept. And so I know Henry's parents, like, they were just like, what's going on? And then my parents are also like, we don't understand what's going on. And so then they would periodically text me like, how about this arch? Do you like this like flower? And I'm like, no, you can't send me these inspirations. I have my own. I promise you it'll be beautiful. Like, I really promise it'll be beautiful.
My goodness, I love that you stuck to your guns too. Like, hey, I just want you to trust me.
Yeah, and it was hard. Like, and even after the fact, they were like, we didn't believe you, but we should have, and it was really beautiful.
Oh.
Like, all their guests were like, we've never seen a wedding like this. It was really beautiful. Some of the ways they described it, which I still don't understand where it came from. One of our guests described it as like a crazy rich Asian like aesthetic, I guess.
It's a huge compliment, right?
It's a good compliment, but then we also got a Thai nightclub, and I don't know where that one came from.
Thai nightclub.
And I was like, did you go to a Thai nightclub? I was like, when did you go? I know.
Yeah, how do we know what this looks like? What's your reference? This is only creating more questions.
I was like, where did these... But I mean, I think they were really blown away, and that was the goal, right? I think, speaking of trends, I think guest experience is like a huge like trend that a lot of people are focusing on, and I really do think that that's very important. But I think without sacrificing, like, what's the word I'm looking for? I think guest experience, like having those awe-inspiring moments without sacrificing like the little things that also are like guest experiences, which is like making sure to say hello to everyone, like making sure to at least talk like twice, and asking about family and making sure everyone's comfortable and no one's put out, and that they all have enough food and enough drink, and like things are convenient for them. That sort of level was also a huge part of it.
I love that. You said you did have a couple other events as well.
Yes, so those are the ones that I paid for.
Okay.
My parents also paid for a farewell brunch the following day, and then I paid for our group of friends, like a very small get together, just because we had a bunch of people traveling from across the country to come visit. So just like something very small, casual, and then an after party afterwards. So that's it.
Okay. So did you feel, because you were talking about being able to have conversations, I mean, I'm assuming that those other events also provided more opportunities to love on the guests that came.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you break it down, if you include the pre-wedding event, I guess the ceremony, it's hard to talk, but like after the ceremony, then the like lunch afterward, the ceremony, then the cocktail, then the reception, then the after party, and then the brunch. So that's like 6 or 7 events.
Yeah. So a lot of opportunities, which I feel like probably the more opportunities you have to actually have a conversation with your guests and spend some time with them.
Yeah.
I feel like when it's a day, it's so great, but it really limits, and I feel like adds the pressure to the couple to get things done.
And it's stressful, right? Like, I think it's stressful for the couple, and I think it's also like stressful for the guests to try to like say hello, thank you, and then like there can be some misinterpretation that like, I didn't see you. Is that an intentional snub? Is it not an intentional snub? Like that type of thing.
Yes, for no reason. I'd love to think like, oh, they're busy. They got married and have 140 people to entertain. But I think it's so interesting how easily feelings can get like mixed up and all of that. Photography, planning and design, any other major priorities? Oh, and catering.
Those are the top 3, to be honest.
Okay.
Those are the top 3, like, largest, the most important. And I guess like guest comfort. And guest comfort is like a miscellaneous kind of group. So that's like transportation and choosing a venue that had elevators for older guests and things like that.
Did you have many people coming from out of town?
So I think this is an interesting question, and I actually don't know how to answer it. I don't know what a destination wedding is. And I didn't think that this was a destination wedding because it was still within the US, because I think destination weddings are abroad. But then I keep seeing online that destination weddings are like if people have to travel, and I'm so confused now. But we had people come from the West Coast, we had the people come from the South, we had people come from Canada. and England, and we had people, some of my family from India came, and then we had people from like New York and Florida, and so we really had like a huge bunch of people.
How many people on your guest list lived in Philadelphia?
Maybe like 10.
Okay, yeah, you kind of had a destination wedding. I mean, not like fully, but like that's a lot of the couples I work with actually. A lot of the couples I work with are traveling from out of state as well, but some of them like do live here, but Scottsdale, Arizona is like a very like transient place, and so a lot of people move here, but their family and friends have never been, and so a lot of Chicago, cold places, all the cold places. And so they come, and it's so funny because they think nobody's going to want to come, but they're like, no, this is a special place to this couple. And what other time are you going to be coming and hanging out in Scottsdale for the weekend? So I mean, yeah, you kind of had a little bit of a destination wedding.
A little, I guess that makes sense now, because I was just like, I don't know what to call it. But the interesting thing is a majority of our guests, or at least 50% of our guests, either work in Philadelphia and they just kind of live in the outskirts, or they've previously lived in Philadelphia and then just have moved away. So it's not like it's an unfamiliar city for them.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, you were just talking a lot about the accommodations and all of that, and so that was what led me to ask the question: is how many people?
Yeah. Oh no, they still had to no. They still had to book the hotel rooms, and even the people that live in Philly, like sometimes it can take 40 minutes to get from one part of Philly to where the venue is, and so
we love a big city.
Yeah, that's just traffic. It wasn't even that far, but yeah. So they even had to stay in the hotels, so just to make it convenient, so they're not traveling back and forth. But
and then, what level of transportation and stuff did you guys provide?
We gave shuttles. So we gave shuttles from the hotel blocks. So we had 2 different hotel blocks, and so we provided shuttles for them. And even though it wasn't that far, if someone really wanted to walk, they could walk like 20 minutes from the hotel to the venue. We still provided it because a fair amount of our guests were older, because a lot of them were my parents' guests. And so they had mobility issues or things like that. And so it was very important for us to take that into consideration.
Okay, I love that you considered that. And then the hotel, did mostly everybody stay there?
Majority of people stayed there. There were some people that obviously if they lived in Philly, they didn't stay. Or if they had family that was close by, they wouldn't stay. Otherwise, most of them stayed in the hotel blocks.
Okay. So, leading up to the wedding, we have the catering surprise. Were there any other major surprises?
No, actually. Thankfully.
You did say mostly everything was done already by that point.
Mostly everything else was done, thankfully. And so that's why the catering surprise, eventually when we got down to having to do the menu development, it was okay, because everything else was already kind of settled, and it was just the finalized details that we had to focus on, and not the heavy lifting. So, but no other big surprises, thankfully.
You talked about it being multicultural. So was there anything special that y'all did to blend those two things together?
Yeah, a lot of symbolism. So we made sure to include flowers that were important to both cultures, animals that were important to both cultures, colors that were important to both cultures. So, which I forgot to mention about the sort of mood board inspiration, was that it was also blending of the cultures that were very important. Food as well was blended as much as possible.
Yeah, how did that work for the food piece?
Yeah, so that was mostly in the morning. So my husband is Chinese, and so there actually is an Indo-Chinese cuisine. That's actually a real cuisine that has developed because of the Chinese influence in India, and and so then they developed their own cuisine, and so we were able to incorporate that.
I've never heard that before. I bet it's delicious.
It is. It's very delicious. It's different. It's something different, but it is super delicious. Yes.
Okay, I love what is special touch, and the colors too. I love that a visual representation.
Yeah, so it's a lot of reds, a lot of golds, a lot of greens and oranges, and things like that were very vibrant and big in both cultures.
Did you have a bridal party?
No, we didn't have. We had friends who got ready with us.
Okay.
but we didn't have them stand up next to us or anything like that. And yeah, no, it's just like it wasn't necessarily that important. Or like, and
Okay.
also for like a Hindu ceremony, I guess a lot of people are doing it nowadays, but like it's not necessarily something you see traditionally. And so what we do though is we buy outfits for like our closest friends and family. And so like I gifted them outfits to wear, like our close friends. We like paid for their outfits to wear for the morning ceremony.
That is so sweet. I love that. Well, tell me about the day of and that experience, that whole weekend. What are some highlights?
I think the biggest highlight was just seeing everyone really enjoy themselves. I think like you plan and you plan and you plan and you hope that people are going to have a good time, and you hope that people will really like be blown away and awe, kind of stunned in awe and like everything like that. And you don't really know until you see them. And then it really like was sort of a high a little bit for me. And I think that that comes from my like crazy party planning ways, that like
Yeah.
you put all this time and energy and then you see it come together in like a very fantastical way. Like it was very fun,
I
as
love
well as
that.
catching up with people you haven't seen in so long. Like I think that's also beautiful to see the people that like you've had a big impact in their life and they've had a big impact in your life, and you've shared so many moments together and they come to celebrate. And I think those are very important things to keep in mind as well.
Being able to spend that time with those people is such a sweet gift. I feel like it can be emotionally overwhelming, but like in a good way. Maybe there's a better word to say than overwhelming, but being able to truly like relish that time together. And I think it is such a sweet testament to like you guys and your friendship, and to be able to fully be present and enjoy that is, it's really priceless. I love
Yeah,
that.
no, it's really meaningful. It's very meaningful.
That is so sweet. If you were to give one piece or maybe two, I don't know, pieces of advice to somebody who is planning their wedding, what would it be?
My biggest advice, I realize I put a lot of time and energy into planning and like really put a lot of focus and detail, but I never forgot that it's more important for your marriage to be beautiful. Like your marriage should always be more beautiful than your wedding.
Okay, well, we're done here. That was
As much as like Pinterest exists, and as much as like all the like trends exist, like you never should forget that like truly the focus should be the marriage, and the marriage should always be the most beautiful thing, not the wedding. That's like icing on the cake, on the wedding cake, but like it should always be the marriage first and foremost. Like that should be the most beautiful
so we're
part
gonna
of your
put
life.
that on a poster or
Yeah.
a t-shirt. I don't know, either one. I think that is the most beautiful piece of advice. And I totally agree. I think things can get lost in the weeds and the details and all that. But at the end of the day, like that is what we're celebrating, is the start to this beautiful journey together. And that is the primary focus.
Guess like more succinctly, how I say it is like never let your wedding be more beautiful than your marriage. Like that's the, I guess, the succinct form.
Mm, that's going to be for sure an Instagram post. At the very least. I love that so much. That's so beautiful. Okay, my very last question, which you've already answered, but I have to ask again. It has to be last.
Yeah, of
Was
course.
it worth it?
Absolutely. It was absolutely worth it. It was an event to never forget. So it was truly worth it.
Oh my gosh, it's not my last question because I forgot to ask you, what did the budget? You started at 250. What was the final budget? Did we go
Little
over? Did we
over,
stay under? What was the
a
deal?
little over 300.
Okay.
So it's not too bad, and again, like it was truly worth it. My parents even were like, we're happy. It was absolutely worth it. We're happy we spent the money. So
Yeah, I love that. It's a once in a lifetime event, and I'm happy that you got to share that with your families. And I bet it was really an eye-opening experience too for maybe people that were older and have only seen a specific type of wedding, to see two cultures come together so beautifully. You know,
yeah,
it's like,
they were very impressed with the culture blending, as well as just I think the venue was a huge hit. They were like, this is very different than we've ever seen. And I think also just like the overall design was also very different than they had seen, and very much imbued with our personalities and our like interests as individuals and as a couple. And so like I think they really like, they're still talking about it basically. So
oh yeah, okay. That was not my last question, because you were saying that you haven't gone on your honeymoon yet. Where are you going?
we're going to Madeira, which is off the coast. It's part of Portugal technically, and it's an island in the Atlantic. It's technically closer to Africa than it is Portugal, but they call it the Hawaii of Europe.
Okay.
And it's easier for us to get on the East Coast. We can go there.
Oh yeah, that's true. It's so funny. I've thought about moving to the East Coast, but like I realized like a couple years ago, like we're pretty close to Hawaii, and Hawaii is I'm borderline obsessed with it. So yeah, that's so fun. How long are y'all going for?
We're going for about 10 days.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a good amount of space between the wedding and then recovering from all of the excitement.
It was definitely a month recovery. Like, to be honest, it was not even until after January 1st that we feel recovered. Like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and then like going into holiday season too, I'm sure it was like right into that. Have you received your gallery back?
Yes, we did.
Okay, what was that like?
It was amazing, beautiful, all the colors, all the color saturation. It was stunning. And again, like, you can feel the emotion through the photos. So it was like the best decision.
Love to hear it. I feel like you can like hop on TikTok and there's like horror stories or whatever, and I don't care. I don't want to hear those anymore. I want to hear this.
Do you know what the funny thing is that one of the venue directors, they specifically said that like the stars aligned for your event to have gone as well as it did.
Really?
Like, yeah, I'm sure they're very familiar with like things popping off and going wrong, but they were like, no one got sick, no one got hurt, things generally ran smooth. And of course, if there were like one or two little blips, you can't really like, you can't plan for those, but like overall it like really went smoothly.
What a gift all around, literally. Oh my goodness. Okay, that's the best. All right, is there anything else that you would add?
I don't think so.
No, you don't think so? No, you're like, get me to my honeymoon already.
No, I know. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. We're still planning it. We're still in the process of planning it, or like finalizing details. But yeah, I think if the question is, was it worth it? Like, it was dead ass worth it. We're originally from New York, so like that's like it was dead ass worth it. So
it's dead ass worth it. All right, I'm down with that answer. That's what I want to freaking hear. Thank you, Seets. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was so lovely meeting you.
Time. Yeah, it was so good meeting you. I'm meeting the freaking coolest people doing this. So. All right, we will chat soon. I have to follow you on your honeymoon, like the creeper that I am. All right, I'll talk to you later. Thank you so much for joining us. If you were recently married, or if you know somebody who was recently married, who might be super fun to chat with about their wedding planning journey and how they decided to allocate their funds and how everything came together, you can find us on Instagram at Wed and Worth It. There's a form within that bio you can fill out, or just feel free to send us a DM. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you next time.